Are you ready to know what you don't know about social media? Well, then you're in the right place. This is the Seb Rust Show on Social Buzz on Air. Social Media Radio. Bring you tips, tricks, tools, and extreme value. Broadcasting from our studio in Miami. And now, here's your host, Sebastian Rust.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Seb Rust Show. Hey, maybe welcome to the Seb Rust Show because it's your first time joining us. Either way, I sure do appreciate it. My guest this week is John Jantsch. He's a marketing consultant, speaker, and author of Duct Tape Marketing, the Referral Engine, Duct Tape Selling, the Commitment Engine, and SEO for Growth. And as of recent, the Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, 366 daily meditations to feed your soul and grow your business. This book is amazing. I tied into it the first of the year. You read one page per day. It's one posing action question at the end. Super simple to do. I'm really enjoying it. I don't get to do it every single day, but as John talks about in this interview and as well in the book, you don't have to worry if you miss a day, if you miss a week. Whenever you come back to it, the book is waiting for you, and you can do it over and over and over again for years to come. So I'm excited to see what kind of gems I'm going to be able to extract out of this book, and I'm even more excited to have John on the show as he shares his journey of how he conceptualized the idea for the book and how it all became a reality. Friends, could you please help me welcome to the show John Jantsch? What's happening, brother?
Hey, I'm just hanging in there, doing podcasts right and left, and just so thrilled to be on your show.
It's a privilege to have you on the show, and I really do appreciate your time. Like I'd mentioned before we started recording here, you and I met briefly, probably 2 or 3 years ago when there was some sort of, I want to say, Amex Small Business Smart Expo or something.
I think it was Entrepreneur. It was a magazine. It was either Entrepreneur or Inc. I thought. Did it, but
neither here nor there. You were quietly sitting, trying to charge your phone and regroup in the hallway. Some maniac with a bow tie comes up and said, "John, you don't know me, but I know you, and I've been following you since God spoke to Moses." So it's great that when I saw this book pop up on the internet, I don't know who someone shared it. Someone actually posted it and said, "Hey, this is my read of the month."
Yeah.
I thought, John Jantsch, holy cow! I got to reach out to him. So with the internet's working the way that the internets currently work, literally a click of a mouse, we had maybe 2 sentences back and forth, and we're able to schedule something and get things going here. So it's just great how technology makes life so easy, isn't it?
That's right. Absolutely. It's I've been podcasting since about 2005, and I will tell you, it has gotten a lot easier to do that. I used to, I would do it over a phone line, of course,
Sure.
And I actually had a device that plugged into the phone, kind of like probably the FBI used at the time as well, to actually record both ends of the conversation. I mean, it was pretty janky. And of course, then you had to teach people how to actually listen to it and whatnot. But
right. They're like, what is a podcast?
Exactly. So I'm glad that podcasts are a hot topic these days, and that people are really enjoying them.
Let's start there real quick. We're obviously want to talk about your brand new book here, which I don't want to say I'm in the middle of it because you don't get in. Well, you get in the middle of it because you've been reading it for a while, but you don't get in the middle because you decided to read the whole thing in a day. And you got to get the book to understand what I'm talking about. But the Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, 366 daily meditations to feed your soul and grow your business is John's newest book. We're going to chat about that. But real quick, you're a marketer, by trade. Through and through. So, and you've been podcasting for quite some time now. Do you not find it fascinating that a technology that's well over 16 years old is just now gaining popularity, yet it's not even really popular yet? I mean, it's popular because 50% of consumers in the population are consuming podcasts, and there's 800,000 podcasts out there, but most people don't even know what a podcast is. From an old school marketer standpoint, where you've seen the evolution of this whole digital thing come about, and here we are now. What's kind of your thought on that?
Well, a lot of people are familiar with Jeffrey Moore's, Crossing the Chasm, when he was talking about what it takes. You got the early adopters, and that there's this point where, you kind of jump the trough and you've really made it. And I think what happened to podcasting is that as we alluded to, blogs came along, and then it was like podcasting was the natural extension. Now we're just going to have audio blogs is what it's going to, turn to. But it was really inconvenient for people to listen to it. I mean, they had to download some piece of software, know some technology. And then a little thing called social media showed up. And all of a sudden, all the attention went to Facebook and Twitter and, LinkedIn and what we're doing in those channels and whatnot. And I think podcasting just kind of fell by the wayside. Then Apple decided to add the podcast app to the default on the iPhone. So it came, and all of a sudden now people are like, "Oh, what's this?" Press
you got it whether you like it or not.
Now I'm listening to podcasts. And so I think that was a big major turning point in that was probably 10 years ago, but that was still a major turning point, I think, in podcasting. And then I think eventually what happened is you started seeing mainstream media, really getting desperate for listeners, for advertisers, for avenues to be out there. And I think when folks like NPR, jumped, with both feet into podcasting, all of a sudden then it became mainstream media, mainstream behavior. You started having, television shows talk about their podcasts they were listening to. Right. Things. And so I think that was, and so obviously now it's just almost it's quasi ubiquitous. And that's a pretty fancy word.
It's a great word, John.
I hope you're.
God, we're not even 10 minutes into the show here. We're already busting out those incredible vocabulary there. So I hope you're taking notes, listeners. By the way, so it's really it'll be fun. I'm very curious to see how the whole radio world continues to fizzle out, or rather, probably scurries to figure out the whole podcast network, podcast game. There's not three. There's not three individuals in a corner office making a decision for Clear Channel Communications anymore. The pendulum has shifted. So it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out.
You're starting to see some of the media plays where they're buying networks of podcasters. I mean, basically they're buying listeners, is what it amounts to.
Right.
I guess, but interesting time. So I tell people all the time, I do my podcast because it gives me a flat out blatant excuse to talk to people I want to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't mean it kicks open doors of opportunity. It allows you to connect with people. It allows you to get a deeper dive into a book that you buy. Yep. Right. There's all kinds of great examples there. So let's back up a little bit for listeners that don't know who John is, and let's go back to the beginning. And when you first said, I'm a marketer and this is what I'm going to do, how did that journey begin?
It's a long story. You ready? No,
Reader's Digest.
I've actually owned my own marketing consulting practice of some form for 30 years now. So I went to work at a college for an ad agency. About 5 years into that, said, any dummy can run a business. Just kind of jumped out. No real plan. I knew I could hustle work. I had a few people that said they'd, let me work on projects, big, small, didn't matter what, I always said, sure, I can do that. And few years into that, I realized that I had a couple small business clients, and I really loved working with them because it was kind of end to end. You could see the whole thing that you did. It actually produced a result. Sure. They wrote you a check. I just liked that feel, and impact. Sure. But they were also really tough. I mean, I'd had traditional kind of how to, agency training on how to do it. And so I decided if I was going to work with small business owners, I would have to create a way where I could walk in and say, here's what I'm going to do. Here's exactly what you're going to do. Here are the results we hope to get. And here's what it costs. And that was actually the genesis of Duct Tape Marketing, the name Duct Tape Marketing. I felt like if I was going to turn marketing services into a product, I had to give it kind of more of a brand name. And so that was really where Duct Tape Marketing came from. It was the name of my systematic approach to marketing. The name people seemed to like. It resonated. It made sense to them. And so I put it on everything. I named my company, my blog, my podcast. I had a book. My first book in 2007 is called Duct Tape Marketing. And now I have a network of independent marketing consultants around the world that license our methodology and approach to small business marketing under the Duct Tape Marketing Consultant Network. So, I'm ultimately a teacher, trainer, consultant, but I've also do a fair amount of speaking, and this book that we're talking about today is my sixth book.
Wow! Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You're lazy, John. So, that's fantastic. How many consultants you say you have in the network?
We have about 150. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So it's almost like a Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins type of where, Tony can't be everywhere. So let me teach you what I know and let you go out there and utilize the tools and do it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I don't know
certainly.
if that's the best example, but that's.
Yeah, no, it's probably a better example is like Action Coach or those type of things. Although we're not a
sales.
Yeah, we're not a franchise at all, but they are all independent, and we probably the thing that's happened that maybe originally people were very attracted to the Duct Tape name and to being part of the network and get a running start. We have a lot of people that are jumping out of corporate that want to start a consulting practice that see this as a great way to hit the ground running. But the sort of side benefit that we didn't really, I don't think, appreciate enough was just how, people that are solopreneurs working on their own, now have a network of 150 other people. We do 4 live events a year. And so just the value of having a network of people to commiserate with, lean on, get opinions, work together with, collaborate, has really been a tremendous outgrowth of forming this network.
Well, that's the power of community, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The power of community. 4 events a year. That sounds. So those are comprised of all the consultants.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And some of them are just weekend. We call them boot camps. We're going to work on lead generation. And so everybody just comes together and talks about, here's what I do. Try this, share this. But then we do a conference in October that is pretty much we bring in public speakers, from my network of friends and colleagues, and it's much more of a traditional conference.
Well, if you need an MC for this year's conference, I'm your guy.
Well, we're going to be in October of 2020. We're going to be in Park City, Utah for our event there. Beautiful.
Sounds fantastic.
It is great.
I want to say that I found out about the new book from Jay Baer. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, actually, if you turn that little bad boy over, you're going to see a quote from Mr. Baer on
the one and only Jay Baer. Listen. Okay, let's start backwards. We're going to start on the back of the back cover on here, because when I turned this over, I thought, what? Listen to me, John's doing the damn thing, because we got Ryan Holiday, we got Seth Godin, we got Marie Forleo, former guest of the Seb Rush Show. And then, of course, the one and only Mr. Jay Baer, author of my first book, Social Media Sucks. He wrote the forward for that, like a full-blown not. I thought maybe I was going to get like a little paragraph. But Jay always has time for you. And if you're buddy and he says he can do it and he does it, I couldn't believe he sent me like 3 pages long of like this like whole dissertation on why this book is worth your read.
Well, Jay actually, in addition to offering that quote, when I was early on writing this book, I sent a few pages out to some people. I mean, just like, you think this works, because it is a very different format. I mean, it starts, I reference, so the 366 means that there's a page a day. It's dated. In fact, we can read today's if you want. It's a short one today.
Absolutely.
But I mined mid-19th century literature, which, Emerson, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Louisa May Alcott's today, still some of the best entrepreneurial literature, bar none, in my opinion, written. Then I give a kind of a reflection, maybe on my experience, contextualizing, and then I add a question every day. And so there's kind of 3 parts of the process every day. And when I sent those out, I was kind of noodling with this idea, but Jay Baer said, you need to put a question at the end of every day. That my wife reads a book like that, and it's really powerful to have. And so that kind of that sealed the deal. And so I went and added a question every single day, and that hope in a lot of ways ties together that day's entry. But I get more feedback on those questions than anything. So I certainly acknowledged Jay's contribution to this book over and above the cover.
Yeah, what, we're currently recording this episode right now. It's going to go out in the next, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks here. But today is January 8th, 2020. We're going to read that day in just a second to give you guys an idea of the format. But as we circle back when talking about Jay, what Jay had to say about the book is, it's not a game changer. It's a life changer. This book is your guide on a journey of staggering depth to learn a crucial lesson. A better you makes a better business. Oh, like only Jay Baer can say, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And I think it does tap into, this is not a how-to book. This is a why-to book maybe. And it's really more, there's so much how-to out there. I really did want to write something that I thought was more about mindset, than about, tactics.
Well, what's funny is that I got another very similar book earlier last year. I got turned on to the Daily Stoic, and it's 366. It's so now my new daily routine is coffee, Daily Stoic, Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, and then I head to the gym. So that's like my new. I've been good for 8 days, John.
Nice, good.
Well, it's January 8th. Do you have a copy there in front of you?
I do.
Is that a dumb question, John?
Well, it's not a dumb question. I've been caught off guard before, but
this is true. Okay, cool. Let's get a little sample of what one day looks like here.
Yeah, and it'd be Ryan Holiday is a good friend of mine. He blurbed this book as well, and we actually have had the same literary agent for years.
Very cool.
So I always have fun when people tell me they read the Daily Stoic too. I'd love to get, after you maybe digest a month or two, I'd love to get your view on how you think they differ. Just from tone or from point of view. I'm really interested because I have my own view of that, but I'd love to hear what other people think.
Well, I can tell you right now that this is very, again, from my understanding, Ryan put together these tales have been around for thousands of years, and he put them together in more of a digestible format on a daily basis. I still feel like I'm reading 2,000 years ago, but it does make very good sense. Where you differentiate is the question. Your 2 cents is where you really differentiate, and then the real icing on the cake is the question, because it makes you sit with what you ran, the ancient reading of stuff that's been around forever, what the author has to say about it, and then something to leave you with. So
yeah. It's definitely different in that fashion. So readers are either going to be lucky or unlucky, but today is a really short one. Most of them, my reflection probably doesn't go over 200 words, but it's even less than that. So every day starts with a title, then the reading. This one's from Louisa May Alcott, the Little Women, author of Little Women, which is a hot movie right now. Again, then my reflection, then the question. So today, January 8th, respect your dream. Far away, there in the sunshine are my highest aspirations. I may not reach them, but I can look up and see their beauty, believe in them, and try to follow where they lead. That's from actually a collection of letters of Louisa May Alcott's, written in 1915 or collected in 1915. What is it that you most love about what you do or aspire to do? Who else finds peace, joy, and happiness when you do it? Respecting this notion is how you unearth the joy that will always be with you. Live in constant appreciation of your highest aspirations, and you will attract what you need. Your challenge question today: what element of what you do brings you the greatest joy?
Love it. You know what? And I really haven't had to sit there and rack my brain with that question. I mean, I sit and reflect for a second. I don't just jot anything down. I remembered in your introduction, you said that, it doesn't matter what you write down today. You'll go through this book several times again, and you'll reflect back on what you've written before, and it'll mean something different to you.
Yeah. I wrote all these entries, and of course I've wrote this book in a lot of ways because this is a practice that I've done myself for years, and it's like I wanted to write this book for me too. So I'm practicing it as well, but it's amazing. I read stuff that I, now, maybe I'm getting close to 10, 11 months ago that I wrote some of these entries, and they mean something different to me, reading them now just in that span of time, because I think the whole point of this book or this practice or a lot of the things that we do is to realize that our life's a work in progress, and if we're not continuing to grow, continuing to experience things, continuing to have curiosity about what's next, we're going to stagnate. And I think the fact that you come back and read a page a year later, is actually kind of one of the few times you actually can see how much you've grown. And I have several books that I've read. There's a Deepak Chopra book that I bet I've read 20 times. And it just always floors me that I pick it up. I did it again just about a month ago, and I'm like, God, there's new stuff in here.
What's the name of the book?
It's called The Seven. Isn't that terrible? I should know it right off the top. The 7 Habits of Highly Spiritual People, or something like that. So it's a total rip-off of Stephen Covey's, 7 Habits.
Sure.
But he has much more of a spiritual bent. Because that's kind of his gig. But it just always floors me to feel like, gosh, I've read this book so many times, but there's always some nugget that I didn't see.
Yeah, you definitely get something new I find myself going back through podcasts like that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was such a good episode. I'm not gonna, I want to listen to it again because it was good, but more importantly, I know there's something that I missed and there's just no way we pick it all up, you know?
Yep.
What I really like the introduction, and I'm not a big introduction reader.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged. In fact, I haven't even read Ryan's introduction. I just dove right into day one here, but I did stop and read your introduction. And I'm glad that I did because it really was a guide to get me started here on the first 8 days. You tell everybody how the book is organized, and then you talk about the seasons of all of the book, or is that of an entrepreneur? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So I wrote a blog post. It's probably close to 5 years ago now, which was probably the seed of this book. And I call it the seasons of the entrepreneur. And in my 30 years, I feel like there have been starts and restarts and cycles that I've gone through and changes that I've made. And they always seem to follow a certain pattern. The first season I had to kind of trust that this direction was right, or, that I wasn't crazy for doing it. I mean, I had to kind of develop a level of self-trust. And then the second phase, I call discovery. I had to go out and find out, like, okay, I believe in this. Do other people believe? Will people buy this? And then the third phase is I equate kind of with fall, and of course, this being a 366-day kind of book, the season metaphor was there for the taking, but it always seems like once you start getting some momentum, that's when the leaves start to fall off. Things start to, you have to pivot or be resilient or, change, course a little bit. And if you come through all of those kind of three phases, typically you end at a place where, you start thinking about what difference is this making? I just feel like that lines up kind of nicely with the seasons of the year, but also a pattern that I've seen in my own entrepreneurial experience kind of repeat itself. And so a couple things. I wanted to express that. I think other people have experienced that, and it's not just like once a year you experience this. The seasons have probably happened in my entrepreneurial life 10 or 12 times. But it also gave me kind of a narrative arc for the book, and then I give each month actually its own theme word, like security or resilience or grace. And that because, as I mentioned, I curated all of this literature to put in the book. That kind of gave me an organizational structure for doing that. I started out just kind of reading a bunch of great texts, about from Walden to Self-Reliance and Little Women and Scarlet Letter, and then I realized that was going to kill me, if I didn't have some way to like organize it.
Sure.
Once I came up with the themes, it allowed me to kind of go out and hunt for, okay, what did Emerson have to say about love? For example, and that kind of narrowed my research significantly.
Oh, I bet. And you said that it took a year to write the book?
Between the research and so if I go to the timeline, I was already working on the book. I signed the contract in October, turned it in of 2018, turned it in I think May of 2019. So effectively I had 9 months, or no, I guess that's about 8 months of, I've got a contract. I have to produce this thing, work. And then from May to October, the publisher did what they do for it to come out. Sure. And that's a fairly traditional, publishing cycle for kind of mainstream publishers.
Right. I talked my book to I had an editing team of 6 people.
Yeah.
It cost me a ton of dough to do it. I didn't go the major publisher route, but I could not fathom the thought of sitting down and attempting to write another page. I just wasn't good at it. Yeah. But I could tell you all about it, so I guess there's a different style of however you get it done,
Well, I've worked with small business owners for years, and, the remodeling contractor is not going to write a blog post, and I mean, so I've actually used that practice forever, because they can not only talk about their business, but talk about it with passion. And
sure.
So, that's a practice I've used, from a marketing tactic for years.
Yeah, no, it's your book is your new business card. I was told.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly some truth to that.
Damn expensive business card, but you. So speaking of entrepreneurship, let's talk about both ends of the spectrum. You've been doing this for a minute now. This whole wonderful world of entrepreneur. what's the worst part of being an entrepreneur?
I would say I'm generally such a positive person, quite frankly, about life that it's actually rather difficult for me to come up with that. But I think that probably the worst part for me sometimes is focus. I mean, or lack of focus. I mean, that's the hardest part for me because there's so many things I want to do, so many things I enjoy doing, that don't make sense. And so that leads to chasing dead ends. It leads to saying yes to all those kinds of things. So that's something that I have to work on really consistently.
Sure. Yeah, I agree too. Because usually I'm like, look, squirrel, or it's time for lunch. I always say no one to tell me no is not the best. That's why having a team is there's something to be said for that, right?
There is.
So how long has the book been out? When did it?
So this book officially hit the streets October 22nd of 2019.
Excellent. And how are things been going?
Really great. I mean, a lot of people, I think we were talking before we started recording, that a lot of people bought the book in October and then said, I'm going to start in January, which, of course, as the author, I was like, no, start right now. But, but I get it. And so it's been fun to see a lot of, this is one of those books that has a lot of quotable, kind of things in it. And so it's been fun to see people sharing, their passages and things that resonate, with them in particular. It's also been fun. I've been on some, obviously I'm in a lot of marketing circles, so I've been in on a lot of marketing, entrepreneur kind of shows. But this book's also opened the door to, I've been on a few shows to talk about meditation and to talk about, spiritual aspects of being an entrepreneur, and so that's been a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah, it's great to see when opportunities pop up when a new book drops. It's not just, hey, it's just another book. There's just all kinds of, especially in this digital world here. So
yeah.
Well, I sure do appreciate you carving out some time here for us to be able to connect for a few minutes here. I know today's a travel day for you. So if you just squeeze in an interview, you are a true entrepreneur, John.
That's right. So, you got to fill up the calendar as best you can.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. So for our listeners, what's the best way to connect and follow you and grab a copy of the book?
So you can get the book pretty much anywhere you buy books. I do have a page where you can see a lot of these interviews like we're doing here today, and it's just Self-Reliant Entrepreneur.com. Get close to spelling it and Google will help you.
Oh, don't worry. This is all going to be in the show notes, listeners. Don't you worry.
But if you also want to see what I've been up to for the last few decades online, it is ducttapemarketing.com, and that's DUCTTAPE marketing.com.
And that link will be in the notes too. And I just wanted to point out that he just said, if you'd like to see what I've been up to for the past few decades. Okay. So for all you clowns talking about going into a new decade, John's been doing it for a minute. He knows what he's talking about. He is a seasoned marketer and entrepreneur. That's why we're having conversations with him right now. The stuff that he puts out, it works. So look him up, make sure you follow him, and grab a copy or two. Grab 2 copies, just like I did. I highly recommend buying 2 and then give it to somebody that's an entrepreneur. They'll never forget that.
I've actually been hearing from a lot of people that have said that they've got like an accountability person that that they discuss the question with. And I think that's a great way to do it. I even have a couple husband and wife couples that have told me that, they talk about business all day and it's just the of business, but that this is like giving them something to actually have some real meaty conversations around.
I like that a lot. I'm going to reach out to my buddy who I sent the extra copy to, Judy Fox, LinkedIn expert Judy Fox. I'm going to reach out to her and see if she wants to discuss the questions a couple times a week. I was just going to say I'm going to have some fun with some content with this, because as I start to wrap my head and get into the flow of this, I think of it this way, and you know this theory too. Listen, if it impacted me, if I share it, is it going to speak to somebody else too?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. I'm also doing a Facebook Live every Friday morning too. If you just wanted, I'm doing it on my personal profile at John Jantsch on Facebook. If you want to check that out as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, John, it's an absolute pleasure to connect with you again. And congrats on book number 6 and all your success that you got going on. John, you're clearly doing something right. So I wish you nothing but the best here in 2020. Hopefully you'll come back to the show again sometime, huh?
You bet.
Thanks, John.
All right. Take care.
Hey friends, it's Sebastian again. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Seb Rush Show. I sure do hope you're leaving with at least one or two things that you didn't know before you press play. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get nifty updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please do leave us a review and share this episode with people that you share content with. I'm Sebastian Rusk, signing off from the Podcast Launch Lab Studios here in beautiful Coral Gables. We'll talk to you next time.